In October 1966, on a quiet evening in the Bayway neighborhood of Elizabeth, New Jersey, two teenage boys, Martin Manov and James Jonchitis, are walking home after school. They pass the neighborhood swimming pool and the metal fence creaks slightly in the breeze. Streetlights cast long shadows on the sidewalk as they walk. But standing by the fence is a man. He's easily over 6 feet tall, and he's wearing this metallic green suit that looks like it's made of foil. But that's not the part that really makes them uneasy. It's his face that freezes them in their tracks. It's not angry or hostile, but smiling. Smiling far too wide and unnatural, kind of like it had been carved into his face. And he doesn't move. He doesn't blink. He just stares at them, smiling. Welcome back to Legends May Live. I'm Drew, and today's story is actually a two-part. This is part one, and it's a slow burn that just gets more and more bizarre as it goes. But first, a quick note. All of our stories are true or allegedly true, but sometimes we have to fill in gaps or there are conflicting reports, so just take it as entertainment, not a documentary. The year is 1966. America is in flux. There's unrest at home, and the Cold War hangs over everything like a storm cloud. But beneath the headlines, in the quiet corners of the country, something else is brewing. A string of strange sightings begins to spread. Not just lights in the sky or flying saucers, but people or things that look like people. There are strange men in black suits, women with glowing eyes, and sometimes just a man with a smile. Reports start piling in, and in one New Jersey town, two boys come face to face with something that left them shaken. James, or Jimmy, Jonchitis, and Martin, Mouse, Manov, they're high schoolers and just a couple of average kids walking home. They're from working-class families in Elizabeth, and on October 11th, they're walking down a path that they'd taken dozens of times before near a housing complex. It's a quiet night, and the boys are tired, but they're enjoying the night air. But as they walk by a housing project, they look over, and beside the chain-link fence surrounding the house, they see a figure. It's this creepy, tall, thin, unnatural-looking man wearing this metallic-like green suit just staring at them. He's smiling with a grotesquely wide grin. Jimmy later said that he was standing there behind that fence. He was staring at us. He had this big old grin, just like a clown, but not funny. Mouse said he was weird-looking, tall, bald, kind of glowing. The man didn't speak or really act in any way. He didn't react to their shock. He just stared and kept smiling as they hurried away. He didn't chase, just watched in almost inhuman stillness. The boys weren't harmed, but they are shaken. It's not like they hadn't met strange characters before, but this man really looked like something pretending to be human more than a real man. But they're not the only ones that get to run into this guy. Soon, other residents begin to whisper about a strange man hanging around the neighborhood. One family reports seeing a tall figure crouched behind the garage. He was there 1 minute and then just gone before they could investigate. Another claimed their dog wouldn't stop barking at an empty alley nearby where the boys saw him. And surprisingly, the local police take notice. Reports are filed, patrolmen are tasked with investigating the area, and they conduct numerous interviews. And yet, this is where the legend starts to split between documented fact and uncanny myth. John A. Keel, a respected journalist and UFO investigator, later uncovers the incident. He takes it seriously. To him, it's not just the case of two nervous teens and some local residents. This is the beginning of a pattern. Within weeks, sightings of grinning figures begin surfacing hundreds of miles away, in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And the reports are very similar. People are seeing a tall man with odd clothes and an impossible smile. There are reports of silent figures standing at the edge of fields at night. But this time the reports also include eyes that glow red in the dark. We'll get to that soon enough, but for now, it's late October, and the grinning man has made his presence known. Wherever he goes, silence follows, along with this eerie feeling, not of being watched, but of being studied. One of the lesser-known cases comes from rural Ohio, just outside Gallipolis, or however you say that. A woman, who we'll call Janet, was sitting on her front porch just after dusk. She lived alone on her vast piece of land that just stretched for acres. She was enjoying the night sky and the quiet of nature until she started to hear a hum. Just this faint, soft, electrical type of hum, just sort of like a transformer warming up. And she listened for a few seconds, just trying to figure out where it's coming from, and then her porch light started to flicker on and off. And then finally it just turned off completely. And she stood up thinking it might be a circuit breaker, but when she turned to go inside, her eyes locked on someone just standing at the edge of her gravel driveway. It was an unnaturally tall man dressed in a tight suit that looked like foil or maybe plastic. And he was just standing there staring at her. And this would be unnerving enough, a woman living alone in a rural area. No one else should be there, and here's this random man dressed like a lunatic staring at her from the darkness. But what's worse is that he was close enough that she could see his face. And he had that inhuman, unflinching smile that took up far too much of his face. She was frozen in place, not from fear, but like her body forgot how to move. She stares back for a few seconds, and her heart is beginning to beat faster and faster, but then the light comes back on, and with it, the strange, smiling man was just gone. Back in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, the small town that would soon become the epicenter of a wave of high strangeness, and the grinning man, or someone very much like him, would play a role in that story. Witnesses began reporting glowing red eyes in the trees, a humanoid figure with wings, and somewhere in the fog of it all, a tall man in a shimmering suit, smiling silently in the shadows. People started whispering that there was a connection. Maybe this grinning man didn't walk alone, and maybe he walked with things even worse. That's when John A. Keel stepped in. Keel wasn't just a journalist, he was an investigator of the bizarre. His work in Fate magazine had taken him across the country in pursuit of the unexplained. And when he started digging into Point Pleasant reports, he began to find something strange. People in multiple towns describing the same thing, a man who smiled, not with joy or in kindness, but as if smiling was his only function, and the smile was grotesque. Keel began kind of collecting these sightings, and what he found disturbed him. They weren't just seeing something strange, he would write later. They were feeling it, and it was watching them back. Some believe that the grinning man is more than just an entity. They think it's a pattern, a phenomenon that appears before something changes, like a shadow cast before a storm, sort of. And they wonder, what if the smile isn't a threat, but a warning? In Elizabeth, weeks after the boys' encounter, there were reports of a strange vehicle following families at night. In Point Pleasant, after the sightings came, the collapse of the Silver Bridge came, killing 46 people. In Ohio, the woman who saw him said that she later experienced missing time. So then, what if the smile is the first sign that reality has started to slip? There's a psychological concept called the uncanny valley. It's the idea that something can look almost human, but not quite. And that almost part triggers deep, primal fear. Because our brains are trained to spot things that don't belong, like a smile that never fades, or eyes that don't blink, clothes that shimmer in ways they shouldn't. The grinning man sits right in that valley, close enough to pass for human, but far enough to send chills through your soul. But none of this is as strange as it gets. Woodrow Derenberg was a sewing machine salesman with a pretty ordinary and just routine life, but on November 2nd, 1966, as he drove the winding roads, he noticed lights in his rearview mirror, and they were approaching fast. He was near Parkersburg, close to Ohio border, when the vehicle appeared, and he said it wasn't a car. It wasn't like anything he had seen, and it followed Woodrow closely before whipping around him and just blocking the road up ahead. It was this dark and silent craft that was shaped almost like a lantern or a barrel, and it didn't roll to a stop, it hovered. And as Woodrow was trying to figure out what's happening and just wrap his head around what he's seeing, the craft opened and a tall, thin, smiling man stepped out. Woodrow would later say that he looked like a man, but his mouth never moved when he spoke. He said, "I heard him in my mind." Then and what the smiling man said was, "My name is Indrid Cold. I mean you no harm." He asked about Parkersburg and the people and the town and whether they were happy there. Woodrow was stunned, but not paralyzed, and he did his best to answer him. He described Indrid Cold as dark-complexioned, dressed in a tight-fitting metallic blue suit. He had hair slicked back, black and neat. And still, that smile, it didn't change, not once. Cold never blinked, never fidgeted. He only spoke with that eerie internal voice, as if reading lines from a script that he had studied well. The next day, Woodrow reported what happened, first to his wife and then to the police and then the local news. He said, "He told me his name was Indrid Cold and that he came from a place called Lanolas. He said people there were peaceful, like us, maybe better." The interviewer asks, "Did you feel threatened?" And Woodrow's answer was, "No, he was polite, but I felt like he already knew, like he had been watching." And the public was not kind about this interview. Headlines mocked him. They said, "Sewing salesman meets space smiler. Lanulos needs better diplomats," and things of that nature, but Woodrow never backed down or changed his story at all. Weeks later, Woodrow said the visits continued. He claimed Cold returned, and sometimes he was alone, but sometimes he was with others. And they all spoke, sometimes outside, sometimes in dreams, and sometimes without speaking at all. He described their planet as a distant planet outside of our galaxy. He said Cold told him that the residents traveled by thought and had no war, no sickness, and no hatred. And the most disturbing thing is how Cold smiled through it all, how he never blinked and never looked away. Woodrow's story became national news. Some believed him, but most laughed at the absurd claim. But behind the scenes, UFO researchers like John Keel weren't laughing. Keel believed Cold, if he ever existed, wasn't alone and that maybe he wasn't even from space. He wrote, "Indrid Cold may not have come from another planet at all, but from somewhere else entirely." The more Keel investigated, the more unsettling it became. Cold's presence seemed tied to the others, to the men in black, grinning men in different states, all strangely polite, all strangely quiet, and with that fixed, unreadable smile. Woodrow wasn't the same after that night. Friends said that he became more reclusive. His family said that strange things began happening around their home, that there were lights in the sky, strange phone calls, visitors who never left footprints. He said that Indrid Cold had become his friend. He never changed his story, and not even on his deathbed. He believed that Cold had come in peace. The world wasn't ready for him. So what do you make of a man who speaks without moving his lips, who appears from a silent craft wearing a smile that never shifts? Was Indrid Cold a diplomat from the stars, psychological projection, or something slipping between worlds? One thing's certain, people across the country are starting to see him too. And next time on Legends May Live, we follow the spread from Point Pleasant to the deep Midwest and explore the strange, growing web of sightings, where the smile appears again, and this time, it brings company. That's it for today's episode. Tune in for part 2 coming soon. Things will get even more bizarre, but unbelievable as it is, even more witnesses and support for Woodrow's claims. If you enjoyed today's story, please remember to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Until next time, stay alert and keep a lookout because legends may live.